The Legend of Zelda, one of Nintendo's mainstay franchises. Link, usually being the protagonist, fights a wide array of villains throughout the series, one of the more iconic villains being Ganondorf, who first appeared in Ocarina of Time in 1998, which is where the first case starts. Ocarina of Time is the first 3D Zelda game. While having lost media in itself, that's not what we'll be discussing today. Instead, it's after the game was released. On May 28, 1998, Nintendo would hold a E3 booth as per usual. They would display things like Mario, sports games, new titles like Pokemon Red and Blue, and The Legend of Zelda. Nintendo would have a giant Link statue and a puppet show portraying Child Zelda and Ganondorf. The puppet show would go on for around a minute and lead into gameplay for Ocarina of Time. This footage would be lost, with only a few pictures of the event being on the internet, and what footage of the event was left would resurface on YouTube in 2020. Later, on Reddit, a post by SpottyGirl33 would claim,
"I've been watching some obscure videos from the Ocarina booth in 1998, and there's a really big Link statue in the background, but no images from the actual event. There's only a picture in a magazine taken from a weird angle, and that's it. There's also an image online from the website Platypus Comic, who did a coverage of the event, of a young Zelda puppet, similar to the Mario and Mario puppets Nintendo used to have, who interacted with Ganondorf, which I found no other information on. Has anyone heard of this? I looked for information in the website of the person who wrote those articles but found nothing. No names or anything. Most of the coverage from the event is in the web archive now too. The Platypus Comic website uploaded the initial article, but everything else goes back to the Nintendo's website in the website archive. No names or contact information. I haven't found any additional information on the puppets in any other website or footage. I'm shocked that they've never been mentioned before."
The video that did resurface would only show a view of the Zelda puppet. The Ganondorf puppet is visible, but the face is obscured by the shadows, and the Link statue is nowhere to be seen. Clear images of only the Zelda puppet were located in an article from around the time.
Princess Zelda takes center stage, literally, in the Zelda Theater. An almost life-size puppet of Princess Zelda will actually interact with the audience, like Mario and Wario have at previous shows. The princess is continually menaced by a gigantic Ganondorf, enticing visitors to check out The Legend of Zelda, the Ocarina of Time.
But images of the Ganondorf puppet still have not been found. The search was able to locate pictures of the Link statue from different angles. From the most recent couple of updates, the Zelda and Ganondorf puppets were supposedly made from the same company as the Mario and Wario puppet from that same year's E3, but just like those are still nowhere to be found. OP would reach out to the company who supposedly would have made these puppets. The response the company gave only offered so much. Sadly, the company did not recall making any of the puppets. They ended up forwarding OP to the company who would have handled the puppets after E3, but the company has been dissolved, and the owner of it has also passed away. The last updates on the search was the OP trying to contact Dan Owens, the author of the previous E3 article, with no response. It's possible that the Zelda and Ganondorf puppets are being held onto by Nintendo of America in their archives somewhere, which things like the Nintendo Museum opening up in Kyoto gives me hope that these puppets could reappear in a similar attraction if Nintendo opens a similar museum in America. They could only reappear there, or they could be rotting in someone's house, a landfill. Only time will tell if Nintendo will ever show these to the public again, just like the Mario puppets. On the note of Ocarina of Time, its sequel, Majora's Mask, had an interesting state of affairs during its development. It was one of two expansion packs for Ocarina of Time, those being Ura Zelda and Zelda Gaiden. Ura Zelda ended up falling through due to the failure of the 64DD, a floppy disk add-on to the original N64, leaving what Ura Zelda had in store a complete mystery. While Ura Zelda ended up getting cancelled, Zelda Gaiden ended up going forward, which ended up being Majora's Mask. Very few screenshots and test footage still exists of Zelda Gaiden, revealing a very different game originally. The game was supposed to take place around a 7-day clock, and possibly a very different appearance of Termina's iconic moon, but it doesn't end there. Looking at the game files, it reveals a lot more of what the game would have had instead, like an adult Link mask instead of a fierce deity mask, as well as a random child Link mask, which is only equipable on Skull Kid. On top of that, Zelda herself looks like she was supposed to have a bigger part in the story instead of a brief flashback. Considering there are a lot of unused animations animations her model can do, like playing a flute, which the model for a flute is still in the game's code, and even doing a backflip. It's unknown what she would have done, but Nintendo, considering Zelda Gaiden 2 similar to Ocarina of Time, she might have helped you defeat Majora in a similar final battle to Ganondorf's fight. It's unlikely if any of the cut Zelda Gaiden content will ever see the light of day. The only way I see this is if a developer cartridge of it ends up on eBay or a giant data leak ends up happening, something similar to the Pokemon leak from last year. But as of now, Zelda Gaiden remains lost. This video was sponsored by myself, because I own the channel. I don't want to sound like too beggy or like preachy with this, but please, if you could, press the like button. It would help the video out, it would help the channel out. Again, thank you for watching. Enjoy the video. Back in 1996, Nintendo Power would launch an interactive online role-playing story on a message board on AOL, which was left up to the people in the forum role-playing as characters to come up with the story, with guidance from the mods. The forum is estimated to have over 6,000 posts, but most, if not all, are lost, except for a few mentions on other forums after the fact. The story features an island around Hyrule. A new species, the Shigrami, I totally butchered that, had to settle on this island after their old territory was flooded. They would eventually get into conflict with another species, the Kani. Now, I won't read the whole story here. I'll leave the Zelda wiki post in the description, cause it's an actual really interesting read. A user on Reddit, Beerness, would make a post mentioning A Link to the Future, and if anybody remembered it. According to archives in 1996, there was an official collaborative story by Nintendo known as Hyrulean Adventure, A Link to the Future. As detailed in the Zelda wiki article, the story featured an unknown island on Hyrule, and new species known as the Kani and Shigarami. There was also a mysterious empire known as the Sirius Empire. Nintendo Power ran a similar story earlier in that year about Metroid, known as Blood of Chozo, one that had a lot of lore created by Nintendo. Unfortunately, that story is barely archived, just like this story. Blood of Chozo, at the very least, had a large part of its main story archived by a user of the Metroid forums, who posted their archives sometime in 2008, as detailed on the Metroid wiki article. From what I found in my research, it seems that seemingly all archives of Hyrulean Adventure were lost when Nintendo Power just shut down their AOL chat room where the story was played. So I'd figure I'd ask here, does anyone have any info or memories about this event, or any part of the story, specifically parts created by Nintendo Power? But really, any info would be helpful. More info to potentially jog memory. There were users from the previous Metroid event deemed official scribes. The users, Dark Panda, the Scribe of Power, Raleigh Coop, Scribe of Wisdom, and Jippy Kid, the Scribe of Courage. The forum and story were mentioned in 2 issues of Nintendo Power, 87 and 89, showing off art and even the island map, which is the only archive of the images from the forum and story. Interestingly enough, the title of the story, Hyrulean Adventures, A Link to the Future, insinuating it takes place after A Link to the Past. It also played out before Ocarina of Time influenced the rest of the Zelda series, so it's an interesting look at the time period before. It's possible that just like Blood of Chozo, some of A Link to the Future was archived, but it's unknown at this time. The topic itself seems to just start to get attention, so given time, it's likely that some of the logs will be found, but sadly, Hyrulean Adventure is still lost.